Hey.
I'm sorry. Did I wake you?
Yeah, you were causing a real ruckus out here. Can I tempt you into coming back to bed?
I think I'm just going to stay up for a little bit longer, babe. You should go back to sleep.
Cash. You can't go on like this. I don't know how many times I can tell you, you are a good cop. You can't save everyone all the time. Felicity made some decisions that we can't understand. She made those choices. And the guy that did this, I know that you wanted to hurt him, still want to hurt him. Well, babe, get in line.
I get all that, Aiden. I've been listening.
But it doesn't change how you feel. At some point, you have to accept life keeps going even when terrible things happen. We can't change the past. It's how we choose to keep going that matters.
We are Si and Sophie. This is Coastal News, a home and away podcast, your weekly episode companion podcast for your favourite Aussie soap.
Right, I'm glad you're finally here, Sophie. I need to have a word with you.
Oh, uh-oh.
That
What
changed
have I
the
done?
mood. I've heard that you've been meeting with the old Forrest Duke behind my back about going on to a big podcast agency. What's all
Oh,
this
no,
about?
that
What you
was
got to say for yourself?
that was Forrest Gump, actually.
An
No,
opportunity you
it wasn't
can't
me.
pass up with Forrest Gump.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear, we're going shrimping on Bubba's mum's boat. So, of course.
Oh, this is starting well. Are you
I
okay?
never know what you're gonna say. I'm always like, what on earth is he going to throw at me this week? So that threw me. So, oh dear, I think it's all right actually, considering.
Check this is just testing you've watched Home and Away this week. That's what it is before we get going.
Oh right.
How are
Okay,
you? Are
got
you okay? Enjoying your week off?
I am as fit as a trout. And I am enjoying my week off. I am, thank you.
And you've heard every word.
I have. I'm not deaf. I'm fit as a trout. You know, all of that. I'm all good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Busy, but not bad. Your week sounds better. Tell us about your week.
Well, so far I've had a haircut.
I could do with one of them.
I've had a haircut and I've watched 5 episodes of Home and Away, and that's about it, I think.
And you've achieved a lot in 4 days. Round of applause.
Thanks. I thought so.
For a week off, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, pleased to hear it. Now, are you ready for your headlines?
I am.
Who needs friends when you've got bandmates? As Kirby goes behind Lurik's back and has a life-changing meeting. Alf buries his head in the sand before reluctantly seeking help for his hearing loss. Rose meets Marley's mum, but the reception is frosty. And Cash puts his energy into helping other sexual assault victims. I now realise that makes it sound like he's the victim of a sexual assault.
It's fine. We know what you meant.
please take the time to like, subscribe, and review Coastal News wherever you source your podcasts and ensure you never miss an episode.
Right. Many an email in Justin's inbox on Monday when we rejoined our friends down under. And Lyric, they are hot property after that album launch last week. His words, not mine. And yeah, it looks like the album launch has gone down well. There's been some great write-ups. There's even some radio play happening, so we're to believe. And you know, there's even an offer to be interviewed on Drive Time with Felix J. Oh yeah, you know you've made it.
Wow.
It's
all kicking off.
It is. Lyric, it's happening. It is happening.
Get on board. It's happening. As Justin would say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good job because it seems to have gone down well. Theo's got a bit of apprehension, hasn't he? Because you remember he did this whole freezing in, you know, the interview part of the launch last week. He froze in action, and Kirby had to step in, and it sounds like he needs a bit of media training or what have you. But you know, there's this well, yeah. But there's this conversation this week about strengths, isn't there, and playing to them, and Theo's a bit self-conscious about this is a big part of the job, having to promote it, you know, promote themselves, and he's struggling with it. And there's a lot of things going on online. There's videos and reviews and things, and Justin's sort of trying to keep him away from them. And I'm not sure protecting him like that is the best way. I think you probably need to grow a bit of a thick skin with that sort of stuff, haven't you? You know, when people review things and give you feedback, particularly online. We know that. We know that all too well. So there's you know, Theo sort of sneaking onto the laptop, isn't he, for a little while to look at what's been said and things. And I was wondering where this was going to go, but it didn't really seem to blow up, did it? Really? That?
No. I think a lot of it is in his mind, isn't it? So I think what you just said a minute ago about him needing media training. I mean, they all need media training. That's basic. That's, you know, then now they're starting to get interviews with important media outlets, whether that be radio shows or whatever. They need media training, and they need to practice these common questions that are going to keep coming up over and over again. So it was a bit daft. I know they didn't have a lot of time for this album launch thing, because it was like, it's tonight, and there's going to be a Q&A. Like, there wasn't any time. But now, yeah, he needs to put Kirby forward because she is the best one naturally. But the rest of them need to get media trained, and Kirby needs formal media training. So they need to start with that. But Theo, I don't know what we're supposed to think of this storyline, because he's very aware that he had this blip and he froze, and he's kicking himself for it, as you would. You know, it's one of those things where you mess up at work and you go to bed and you think about it, don't you? And it keeps you awake, and you go, you agonize over it, overthink it and whatever. And I can understand that. I can understand, like, sort of going over it in your mind and getting a bit sort of paranoid and a bit insecure about it. But then there's this meme that pops up on the internet of him as well. It's like, okay, so it was so noticeable, and Lyric are so, you know, are meant to be as this famous, that there's actually a meme about this moment now. That's, for me, it feels like a small thing that he would be insecure about, and it wouldn't really register on anyone else's radar. But apparently there's an internet troll out there that's doing a meme about it. It's just, I don't really know where we're going with this. It feels a bit, do you know what I mean? Is it a big deal in life, or is it just a small thing that Theo's hung up over? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a bit of a grey space between the two, probably, isn't it? And that's probably where the confusion comes from, because that's something that would happen if you really hit big time. But actually, this is a struggling unsigned band who have put out their first piece of music, their first album together, and have had what I would call quite a low key launch. Like, it was a few journos in a room, you know, that
Yeah.
That their manager's one of their uncles. Do you know what I mean? Like, so they definitely, oppose each other. The two things, don't they? I would agree with
it's
that.
weird because on the one hand, Justin saying, "Oh, it's just a blip, nobody will notice," it felt like a year in your life, but to everyone else, it was just a second. And Kirby, jumps in, and everyone forgot about it as soon as we left the room. And it's like, okay, I can see that, I can understand that. But then where's this meme come from? The only I could think of, and I just put this out on Twitter tonight, I was like, imagine if the troll, the person that made this meme, imagine if it was Ava and that was coming back, first time around she was in love with him, and she's posting stuff about him being her boyfriend, and now she hates him, so now she's doing like troll memes and getting them out on the internet.
Yeah.
Hashtag lyric.
I hate Theo too.
That would make
I hate Theo.
Yeah, that would make sense, because if it was one lone person that was trying to get back at Theo for something, or no, if it was Theo's dad, I don't think it'd be Theo's dad, but if it was somebody that Theo knew and they were taking a pot shot at him because this would hurt him, I could understand it. But are they so big that somebody out there on the internet that doesn't know him has made this meme? It's really weird.
At the egg, it's a proper stretch and a jump, isn't it? At the egg.
Yeah,
it is daft. And this the moment where the story actually is, and I think it is more about himself when you see what happens next, where Kirby goes on the radio and does the interview on her own, and I'm like, why not have them all on? But never mind. And I think it rubs Theo up the wrong way, because he feels like he probably feels inadequate and feels like he's no good. He's the least experienced out of the lot of them. He's got all this sort of self-confidence stuff going on because of the incident with the media last time. He's now being frozen out of doing the interview on a national radio station. And Kirby's doing it all, and Kirby's been taking a lot of the load these last few months with various dramas going on. That he feels a bit sort of sidelined, and he goes round and has this almighty row, like they're screaming at each other. He's accusing her of stealing all the limelight and wanting to be out in front and center. She's like, "You're crazy. I'm doing it for the band. I'm doing it for us." So, I mean, I think I put out on Twitter, another day, another screaming match between these two, because remember since the breakup, it's been dreadful, but the breakup to me seemed to come from nowhere as well. They just started arguing one day, and we've never looked back since.
Yeah, very strange. Isn't it strange? Isn't it strange that the week that Kirby starts to say how unappreciated she feels, and how she seems to do everything, sacrifice everything, nobody seems to take any notice, she does all the media stuff, she keeps the band ticking over, she got the job when they couldn't play gigs, and she feels really unappreciated, nobody's texted to say well done on the radio promo or anything like that. Really weird timing that the week that she feels really unappreciated is the same week that this guy comes out of the woodwork and offers her a solo career. It's so like, okay, of course, yeah. I tell you what, I did roll my eyes at though. So when Kirby actually opens up and says to Eden that actually I'm not very happy, and Eden says to Cash, I had no idea, and I was like, so why has she been so angry for weeks then? If she had no idea that she was miserable, what was wrong with her then? Why has she been in such a cob for weeks?
Yeah, she has been. I think you said on First Look, didn't you, last week? She's just been completely unbearable. For several weeks now.
Her best mate in the band was like, "Oh, I didn't even know she was miserable." I was like, "Well, we all did." Where have you been?
Well, she keeps zipping off the weekends away, doesn't she? And
that's true. Yeah.
You're right. She meets up with a record producer who rings her just at the moment where she's feeling like no one loves her, like you say, very unappreciated, and probably caught her on a downer about it, quite impressionable at best. And he seemed to be offering her a very sweet deal, actually. Not Felix. Felix is the radio DJ. Forrest
Gump Green. No, what was his name?
Duke.
Duke. That's it. What a name!
I know, and what a suave gentleman as well.
He was very suave. I very,
very
very much
suave.
liked him, but the name threw me. I'll be honest. I was like, of course he's a record producer with that name. What else would he be? You know.
He's done all the great. I mean, it basically told Kirby she'd be the next Taylor Swift. You know, like this is it. And crucially, he specializes in solo artists only, which is like a pay attention to this, it's going to be important later, you know. And we must mention as well that this whole meeting is nearly rumbled, and she's had to tell everyone it's a date, so she's lying now to the band. So they're all looking at it, like literally Eden is across the room thinking she's on a date with this guy, and actually she's actually going behind her back. Right. Betrayal or not? Has she betrayed the band in your eyes by having this meeting?
No, because I think anybody in her situation would be daft not to go for this, just to hear him out. Not saying she should definitely take the first deal that comes along, but you've got to be crazy not to have that conversation. If you know your whole life, you're a musician, your whole life this is what you wanted, your big break. You'd be crazy to just say no, I don't want to know about it. You have to go and ask and find out what the situation. You know, you'd regret it if you didn't, wouldn't you?
I think so. I think all she's done is hear him out. She's not signed anything. She's not, and I think she would always be. She'd imagine, you know, 3 years down the line, if the band doesn't take off or whatever, she'd be thinking, imagine what might have happened if I'd have answered that phone call, or if I'd have listened to him, or she'd always be thinking, what if?
Yeah.
So I think if I was in her shoes, I would have gone as well. Where I think she's come undone is the lying about it, and it was probably because tensions were quite heightened and fraught at the moment where the meeting happened that she didn't. But I think if she'd have said, look, Forrest Dean wants to meet me, and I think, you know, cards on the table, I'm going to go on here and see what he's got to say. I'll let you know what happens if you're interested. You know, but I think they all felt quite backstabbed, didn't they? That they had found out through hearsay that another band meeting was called, and then they ambushed her. And everyone just sort of kicked off, because everyone's a bit like, well, why is she meeting several times? And not telling us, and she told us it was a date, and she's lying about it. She's planning an escape. She's going to leave us. It's the end of Lyric, you know. So I can understand why they've had the reaction they've had, and that's where she's gone wrong.
I don't know. I disagree slightly. So I think she's right not to tell them, because it could have gone nowhere and it would have caused all this aggro for absolutely no reason. I think where she went wrong was having it in Salt. Like, if she met him somewhere neutral where the band are in there all the time getting pizza and beer and whatever, it was so obvious they were going to walk and see it. So if she really did want to keep it secret, you wouldn't have it in Salt, and I think that's where she messed up. So I think what I would have done is do it somewhere neutral, hear him out, you know, because it would have been a bit of a shock, and I don't think I'd want to rock the boat with the band, because I might have just turned around and said, no, actually, Forrest, thanks very much for your offer, but I'm not interested, in which case I've upset everybody, made everyone think I'm leaving for no reason. It's like when you go for a job interview, you know, I wouldn't go into work and announce I'd got a job interview, but I would tell them when I hand my notice in. Do you know what I mean? Because if I tell someone I've got a job interview and I don't get the job, or I turn it down, then I've upset a load of people for no reason, and then I don't look loyal. And then if the redundancies come around, I'm the first one out, etc., etc. So I kind of see it as the same thing. Like, it's a job, and I probably would have kept my mouth shut. But I don't.
I think I'd have been a bit more open than you.
Really? Oh, I wouldn't. I don't like the drama. I don't want the drama.
The thing. Well, I like a bit of drama. The thing is, they can't turn around and say she was scheming or, you know, going behind their backs, because if she was laid it all out, and at the end of the day, I can see her point of view as well. I can't blame her. You know, she's had her head
No.
turned in in a week when she's had to pick up the pieces at the press conference. She lists it all herself. She was the one that got off her ass and went and got a job when they had no money. Remy wouldn't. You know,
Yeah.
she was the one that kept the roof over their head and paid the bills. She's the one that's covered for Justin when they had no manager and had to do it all themselves. She was the one running around. You know, I mean, to be fair as well, you know, she also broke up with the lead singer and refused to turn up to, you know, rehearsals. So they're all just as, you know, everyone's had their moment. You know what I mean? I'm not sort of glorifying one over another.
She's broken up with 2 lead singers. She's almost ended the band twice because of her love life. You know, she went out with Bob, and that ended really badly, and he took off, and that could have been the end of Lyric. And it was only getting Theo in the band that made Lyric carry on, and then she started dating him as well. It's like she's almost sabotaged Lyric for years anyway, I think, with having relationships with the lead singer of the band.
Heed your advice. Never do it. I mean, I suppose if she goes on her own, she can't then mess it up. But I don't.
Unless
I don't
she
blame
sleeps
her.
with Forrest.
Well, God,
that would be bad. Don't sleep with the boss.
Now then.
Don't sleep with your co-worker.
Now then, yeah. So yeah, I don't blame them for their reaction, but I don't blame her either for wanting to do it. In a nutshell.
No.
And it's the best band type storyline that I've involved since they've arrived. That I've enjoyed this one so much, but it's because they're breaking up.
Are they? Do you really think it's the end of Lyric? Because I was thinking about this. You know, when Remy was lying there listening to his album for the 12th hour, I was thinking, would anybody really notice if they replaced Kirby keyboard? Because when you listen to the record, she's the backing singer, isn't she? Theo's the lead singer. So they just need somebody that can play the keyboard.
She writes it all. She's not just the...
She does, but we know Eden can write songs. Eden wrote the best song that Lyric has got.
That's true. That's true, yeah.
And I think Theo is a songwriter, isn't he? He's written a few songs. He was co-writing songs with Kirby, at least. So Eden and Theo could be the new songwriters. And then Eden and Theo could be the new singers.
I can just see it now. Baby Shark.
They just need
new single from Lyric.
Oh God.
With violinists.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
No,
they can just,
no more
you know,
violins.
They've done it before, but just, you know, you can carry on. And as I say, they could go on as a 3-piece.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think it's as dramatic as losing Bob or Theo, you know, because they're the front, and they survived losing Bob, didn't they? So
true. Well, thrived even, some might say.
Well, yeah.
And let Kirby go off and Machiko Latino, whatever she wants to do, like Ginger Spice.
Yeah.
Right, that's enough band chat. Let's move on, because the world will. Kirby's moving on.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah. Go
her
on.
life is more important than the band. Her life is more important than the band. I'm sorry.
What day? Which episode were you watching when you thought of that?
I think it was Wednesday. Her life is more important than the band. Yeah, she told us months ago that this was going to happen by singing that little ditty to herself when she was drunk.
Everything is a clue for the future. You know, you've got to keep your wits about you.
Oh dear.
Right, Alf needs to definitely keep his wits about him because he can't hear anything.
Oh.
So, and Marilyn's testing him, isn't she? She's sort of turning about to him and muttering things, which is not just his hearing she's testing, but also his patience. And he doesn't have a lot of it, does he? Old Mr.
No.
Stewart there. So she's telling him, you need to get checked out. It's for your safety, you know, it's for your health. Please, she's imploring him to do it, isn't she? And he's saying it's nobody's business, Marilyn. Zip it. Literally zip it or zip up or something. He zips everything anyway. And then it's a little bit of a tiff they have, isn't it? I wouldn't say a row. They've had a tiff because he's being stubborn and she's trying to get him to go and do it. The usual, you know, well-worn track that it is with what ex-character Mr. Stewart. They're normally trying to get him to do something, and he's telling him rack off, basically. Seen it before, haven't we? Just with different characters. And the next morning, Marilyn's woke up and he's gone. He's not at home. He's not at the diner, and they're the only two places he ever goes. And she's looking around. She's looking everywhere for him. She's assumed he's gone to the city because he threatened to bugger off back to the city with Martha, who he's also yelling at on the phone. He's just not been about a laugh this week as Mr. Stewart. No. She's got Arthur Bay looking for him. John's looking for him. Even Justin decides to help for a little minute until he's whisked off with band drama. And she's at her wit's end. It's Irene who's got an idea. She'll lure him back to the bay. She'll tell him there's a problem with the bait shop. And we're like, yeah, the problem is someone's demolished it.
I like the pun you used there. Lure him back to the bait shop. That's clever.
Not just a mediocre face. So he comes back. He's fine. He was just at the city. He's come back, tail between his legs. He's had a mad. He's buggered off in the night, just to clear away from Marilyn. Decides, everyone's out for him. It's actually a chat with Justin, and I did quite like this. It took a bloke to get through to him, and all these Sheilas have been nagging him about his hearing, but it took a bloke to be like, "Come on, mate." It was quite a nice scene, I thought, when Justin spoke to him.
Yeah, it was good. I think he did need it to hear it from a guy, didn't he? Because it's that macho pride. He's a gentleman of a certain era, a certain age. He just needed that push from somebody to say, a younger guy to say, look, I've had health issues before, and I don't like going to the doctors, but we have to, don't we? Because it's in our best interest. So
yeah.
I mean, Justin's had loads of issues, and Alf must know about them. So,
and Justin has become one of the sort of mainstay stalwart characters, hasn't he? He's been around a while. Yeah. He sort of cemented himself. I felt like this scene reminded us that Justin's got he's reached a certain status in the bay.
Yes.
He's able to have a real honest conversation with the Mr. Stewart, not many can,
no.
Other male characters that we have on the show wouldn't be able to. Not even John even.
No, he wouldn't have done a couple of years ago, because it would have been Leah, wouldn't it? So he always used to take a back seat, and Leah used to be more the one that spoke to Alf. But I think you're right. I think Justin, more than Leah nowadays, has probably got the ear of Alf.
Yeah, well, Leah and Alf don't really cross paths too often, actually, thinking about it.
They don't. I think the last time they had a big storyline together was Justin's court case, when obviously Alf came forward and saved the day, because he was the star witness, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Gave him that character reference. That was the last sort of major storyline that they had. Didn't get involved with Andrew much, did he? Just popped by and said hello, but Leah wasn't even in that day, I don't think. So I don't think they've been that close for ages. But I think you're right. I think Justin's taken over that role, hasn't he, now?
Yeah, absolutely. And this scene really brought it home to me, made it really obvious, because I thought, do you know how I thought to you all the time about Alf can't cross the generation gap of the bay? He stays in his group, doesn't he? He really,
because he can't hear them.
well, that. Or chooses not to hear him, because it's pretty selective, that hearing loss. But he doesn't, does he? So, for example, Xander wouldn't be there going, "Go and get checked out, Mr. Stewart." Things like, Marley.
No.
Maybe Marley, because Marley works in the same building, but definitely not characters like Xander. But
no.
This was really sort of out there in front and center for me. Justin is now in that group. He's in the legacy group. He's hanging out with Alf and Leah and Rue. And he's really cemented himself as a long-standing community member. Which I thought was a nice reminder. Oh, segue warning. Irene is advertising for a lodger with the old tear the phone number off, old school or what.
I know. I zoomed in to try and get the number written down, because I'm up for that, defo. I want to move into that spare room. I want the downstairs one by the bathroom because then I haven't
Oh,
got
yeah.
to go very far to go to the loo.
Close for a wee wee.
Ah, just dash
Um,
across in my nightgown.
to find a
'Cause
stranger at the window.
I was
Some
going to
drama.
say, many people have got caught undressed in the kitchen in the middle of the
Mm,
night before, so I don't want that to be
mhm.
me. So, yeah.
So one to watch, because that was going on well,
Mm.
all these scenes.
Do you think we're going to get a newbie, or do you think we're going to get, somebody from the Bay?
Selena.
Selena would be great. Oh.
I don't know. She's been asking, and this whole loneliness thing. We're filling her house. We've been asking it for ages. I'm just going to roll with it.
Mm.
Don't know what's going to
Yeah.
happen. I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
So eventually, Alf, he's been listening to Irene, he's been listening to Justin, and he finally goes and has a chat with Bree, and he's calmed right down now because he's had a chat with a fella, and Bree gets him checked out. So they're just waiting for the results now, aren't they? And it seems like it's
Yes.
not going to be too serious. He's just a bit long in the tooth. He's old Alf.
Oh, bless him. Those are quite nice scenes with Brie, actually. Those, where she was quite calming, and I don't think she was condescending or anything like that, because obviously he doesn't like being talked down to, but he obviously respects her for her medical, experience and whatever. So I thought that was quite a nice scene.
Yeah, I did too. And Bree,
I don't know whether they've crossed paths before.
maybe at the hospital, with the whole Rue getting blown up and that, maybe. But
Yes, you're
Bree
right.
is
Yeah, probably.
Bree is quite a caring doctor, isn't she?
Yeah.
Her character is quite a warm sort of. You would be calm around her, wouldn't you? So I can see why
I think I'd feel comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Would you be comfortable with Elandra and Vicky having lunch?
No. Well, it depends. As long as I'm not a cop, maybe.
So Rose, this is of course Marley's sister and mother, Vicky, have come to town because the photo shoot has raised awareness of Rose's existence the week before that Rose and Marley did. So Marley announced, it's time you met my mother. So they go and meet her, and honestly, I absolutely adored this whole thing this week because the way it started off, I was like, oh, better get the kettle on in the ad break here. She gets out of the car and she's like spitting fire, isn't she? She is not having any of it. She is annoyed. And we quickly find out, Marley's like, what's going on with Marley? He's lying about. Remember, he didn't tell her he moved to Summer Bay, the whole business thing, and he's kept the girlfriend from her. He's never at home anymore. There's probably so many things he's letting her down by doing. And look, she thaws, doesn't she? But she is annoyed. She's annoyed when she gets out of the car. But she's brought lunch, and they all sit down and they try and get to know each other, and they're learning things about where Marley's name came from, which caused us great amusement on First Look last week when we were reading the old episode synopsis. We get this explanation, don't we, about the police thing, which thank God, because you and I have been like, why does he hate cops? Why did he because he broke off the relationship with her. You remember?
Yeah.
And we were like, why is this not explained? What's going on? Turns out he's got a wayward brother. Always getting stopped by for good reason as well, which is explained about, always getting stopped by the police. In turn, they always get stopped by the police. It's all happened to them at some point or another. This is, it wasn't, okay, it was, I think I said somewhere online this week, they danced with this issue quite delicately. It's probably the best way I can describe it, because they didn't explicitly go into, racial profiling or the issues that the police force might have, and particularly a particular unique issue that Australia has, for example,
Mm.
to our
Yeah.
country. So so they didn't go into it and sort of start beating us with a stick, but they just said a few things. We got a bit of information, and then we can fill in the rest. What did you think of this reason? What was your initial reaction?
It was very subtle, wasn't it? And I don't know whether that is the difference between the kind of soaps and the kind of storylines that we get here, and what's controversial here and what's controversial in Australia. I don't know, because I think when you and I were chatting recently about what could the secret be, why do the family hate the police, we were going down a much darker route with this, weren't we? We thought it was, police violence kind of situation, like the kind of cases that we've seen in America for the last few years that have been, they've made the national and international news. We were sort of suspecting that it could have been something quite as serious as that, which it wasn't. So it's his brother that could have been a professional footballer, had an injury, and then hit the bottle basically. Has gone off the rails, has had fights, has been caught up with police for his behavior in the past, and now he's on the straight and narrow. He's trying to put his life back together, but he's being tarnished still by his past, by his reputation, and we're supposed to take from this that it's also to do with his culture, his background, his race. But I'm filling all of that in. Because it's so subtle that, you know what I mean? Is it discrimination because of his past crimes, or is it discrimination because of his past crimes plus his race, his culture, etc.? And I'm filling it in that it's both.
Same, and that's what's so interesting about this, isn't it? That's why it's really interesting, because we're being left to draw our own inferences, and I think we're spot on. Well, because I think the same thing as you do is probably why I think we're spot on. But I think it was really clever. Especially, this show sort of goes and sort of targets younger audience members. It was enough, I think, to make you sit up and think, oh yeah, because it hadn't even crossed my mind actually. Watching it, I'm watching characters on a TV show that wouldn't cross my mind. But I am also white British male, so it's not gonna, is it? And that's the point of saying something like that, of bringing that up and bringing that to light. That is the point. I'm not a person. I'm call it privilege, call it what you like. I don't have to consider my race, my background when I speak to a police officer, but some people do, and that is a scary thought.
It is really scary, but it's because it's been so subtly done. I'm also inferring other things. I'm inferring the fact that they can't spell it out quite so, what's the word? I can't think what the word is. It's gone out of my brain, but they're not beating us over the head with it. They're not saying this is discrimination, this is race, culture discrimination. They're not saying that. Is that because that would be quite controversial because of the fact that there is an issue in Australia with this, and perhaps it's not something that they feel comfortable as a soap beating people over the head with at whatever time of day this goes out in. I don't know. I think it's so, we've had other storylines that have been less subtle. We've literally been hit around the head with the message and the story and the issue based kind of plot of things that it's been spelled out to us, in case we're stupid and we missed it. But this one's so subtle. Do you think it's for a reason?
Probably. I mean, there could be a number of reasons, really, couldn't there? There's definitely context with Australia and issues in their society, isn't there? I mean, I think we it's pretty well known. Perhaps there's some high profile news about that's quite topical. We don't know, do we? Because we're not privy to that.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's to do with the rating, like a G rating or whatever rating the show has, limits certain issues, you know.
Yes.
Like, for example, Felicity has been assaulted, she hasn't been raped, remember? You know, things like that. Perhaps it falls in that same category.
Yeah, it could be that.
I know what you mean. Do you think it's deliberate?
Yeah, I don't know. This is the thing. I'll admit to my ignorance of, you know, people's opinions over there. I don't know what the you know, the consensus is. I don't know how widespread racism or discrimination is in Australia. I don't know whether it's you know, an outlier and it's only a few people that think that way, or whether it's part and parcel of everyday life. And I don't know whether they're being very careful in what they're showing, so as not to sort of alienate the audience or feel like they're being very, very preachy about it. I don't know. Or like you say, is it because this goes out at 6-7 o'clock at night and it's a family show, you know, as far as a family show can go with Home and Away? You know, there is a lot of violence and a lot of sex and drugs and stuff in this show. You know, is it too much to include that? We know that recently when Cash had that fantasy of bashing the Flick's attacker into the, you know, smashing his face into the table, we know that got cut. So the bloody nose got cut out because the censors weren't happy with that. So we know there is censorship issues with what can be broadcast and what have you. But I don't know. I don't know enough about this topic in Australia to have any comment really on what. Yeah.
Perhaps we should give ourselves some homework to find out.
Yeah.
And you know, and I would love to see more of these guys, because I felt like, as a family unit, like I just want to know more, because they've clearly had a very unique experience of life.
Yes.
To a lot of other characters that we have in the Bay, you know what I mean? So I thought I'd be gutted if we don't get more of Marley, Elandra, and Vicky together, and learning more about the brother. I'd even like to meet the brother. I think we should see him. He sounds like he's had, you know, a bit of a life. I just think it would be a real big shame if we didn't hear. And I find that way more interesting than a band.
It is, because this is more relatable, isn't it? Because it's people. At the end of the day, it's people, and we can relate to that. I think Rose summed it up quite well this week. Actually, she probably took the words out of my mouth when she said, "I feel like I know you better now I've met your family," and I feel like I know Marley better now, because, you know, we were questioning a couple of weeks ago, why is he so scared of his mum? Why won't he tell her he's got a girlfriend? Why is he so scared to tell her he's like moved to the Bay? And now when we've met his family, it makes sense, doesn't it? And now all those questions have been answered and you can understand it better. I still can't relate to it personally because it's nothing like my life, but now I get it. And I feel like the same as Rose, I needed some of those question marks over Marley to be answered. And I think seeing more of his family, maybe, like you say, meeting his brother, maybe seeing how that interaction with his brother and Rose goes, if we get to see that on screen rather than hearing about it, I think that would help us sort of put these pieces together, because Marley's he's been in it a long enough time now for us to still have questions about him. So we do need those answers, don't we, really?
We do, and we saw it a tiny bit, and it's sort of like creeping open the door, isn't it? We saw, you know, when she had him in the car, and she's like, you know, you've let me down. You take no responsibility. What happened to my son? You know, like we're now starting to, like you say, with those tiny snippets, those short scenes we had. That's a window into, okay, this is why Marley has been the way he's been for several months. This is why. So things are starting to piece together now, for us, and it's taken a long while, but I'm glad we're seeing it, and I want to see more. I honestly, I could have watched them for the whole half an hour. I really could have done. Flicks back to the grind. Back to the grind. Cash and Eden are also back from another weekend away, not in the mood for talking. And Eden, you know, she tries to talk to him, doesn't she? Cash looks like he's on shutdown mode here, doesn't he? He's checked out. Flick and Tani seem to have decided to draw a line that, you know, get on with things and get back to work and just get on. And the guy's been arrested, you'll remember, and questioned and beaten and all sorts at the police station last week. So there's a sense of relief amongst Tani and Felicity that the guy's behind bars and she's safe and she can start moving on. That was end goal, wasn't it? Getting him caught. But Cash seems to be stuck there. Remember, he had this issue with uncovering all the other victims who would years down the line suffering, and he felt like he'd let them down. As a policeman, his own sister couldn't escape. He's carrying all this on his shoulders, isn't he? And it's weighing really heavily. Eden, bless her, is trying to get through to him over and over and over again. And there was an absolutely lovely scene in the middle of the night, and he's up, and she comes out and she says to him, doesn't she, you know, sometimes you have to accept that life goes on even when terrible things happen, you know.
Yeah.
And he says to her, I hear you, but I can't help how I feel about it all. And luckily, he decides that he's going to channel all this into action. And I say luckily, but it does seem to sort of put the willies up everybody a bit, because he's running around frantically, particularly Flick and Tani, who looks like they're just deciding to move on and get away with it. It seems like he wants to drag them through it all again to try and help other victims of sexual assault. And this frantic nature in which he's going about it seems to raise alarm bells amongst people, doesn't it? And everyone's a bit concerned for him, bless. I don't know how much of this I can probably, at this stage where we're up to explaining what's happened this week, I was thinking, don't know how much more of this I can actually cope with, because it's such heavy subject matter. Do you know what I mean? But it is important that we see the ramifications of it to people around the victim as well. Yeah. So I'm a bit torn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think again it's one of those where it's happened really quickly, and like the end of it has happened really quickly. So we've seen Cash have a couple of sleepless nights, you know, dissociate in the shower. His hair looks a bit messier than it does normally. We're told that he's not been sleeping properly. And then he's gone away for the weekend. He's come back, he's still not sleeping properly, and he's kind of running around on no sleep, a bit hyperactive, isn't he? I've got an idea. And because he's had no sleep and he's probably living on caffeine and sugar to keep him awake, you know what I mean? It's like everything's a little bit manic. I don't know. It could have potentially have gone into a mental health storyline for Cash, but it doesn't seem to have. He seems to have bounced back fairly quickly once his idea of, you know, this sexual assault campaign with the police and, you know, local businesses, SALT, etc. Once that got accepted by Felicity, I think he's kind of back to normal again, isn't he? It's kind of, I don't know. I feel a bit disjointed by this storyline because it wasn't quite enough to get your teeth into.
Yeah, I know what you mean. A bit of flash in the pan type thing.
Yeah,
because I'm not really connecting with the whole everyone spring into action. To me as well, the turning point was the phone call that he's pleaded guilty, you know, from the DPP. Was it a phone call or an email? Yeah. It was an email, wasn't it?
It was an email, yeah.
Saying that he'd pleaded guilty and she doesn't have to go to court. Yay, let's now print some flyers off. To me, that sort of call to action that they've all now got, to me, that I'm not connecting with that for some reason. And I know it's like really important work, but that's where it went at 100 miles an hour. You know, I'm thinking, right, in the case of an episode now, she's printed off flyers, they've arranged self-defense classes, she's talking code words and signage, and they've got half the bars already involved in the whole Northern Districts area. You know, like they're planning a tour of schools or something to teach boys not to be bad. Like, and this all happened in a 20-minute episode. Like,
yeah, Yeah,
Like,
and then she's climbing on tables, isn't she? She's climbing on tables and yelling at her customers, "Take a flyer! Listen to me! I've been sexually assaulted."
mm,
I was like, whoa, like literally hit them over the head with the message because they weren't taking flyers off her. I don't know.
yeah,
Like you, I feel like we could have done with this. I know we don't. We normally complain when storylines get dragged out, but I think this one needed a bit of a an arc. It went
it,
from nothing to the end. Like, yeah, it's rolled out the whole of Yabby Creek and Summer Bay are on board, and it's flyers, etc. And I was like, well, like you. By the end of the episode, it was all done and dusted. I was like, what's going on?
yeah. I thought let
Was it
this
just
one,
to pad it out?
yeah, Gas Mark 3, let it simmer for a bit, because I thought,
Yeah.
like the main, I'm thinking, whoa, the guy's pleaded guilty. This is big news, but actually, that was like a blink and you miss it.
Yeah.
The main event is
that's the news.
Yeah, I'm thinking, let's all just sit down and digest that a minute. Like, we caught the guy, he's pleaded
Yeah.
guilty, he's going away for a long time. They've got all that evidence stacked against him. You were saying last week, weren't you, that there's more evidence than you'd usually have in cases like this. Like, this guy is banged to rights. I've just gone through hell, as have we all. Like, can we just all go and get a beer, and just maybe let's go and have a barbecue on the beach and just take a minute just to realize we're lucky that we're here and we got to this point. And then I do think, as I was going to say, mental health gets a bit cliche these days because we seem to get, not just on Home and Away, but like, there's a lot of mental health storylines, as there should be, right? A lot more awareness about it these days. But it's almost like we were going there, but no, let's not. And I think it was important that we do see the effects, not just on his sister, but I think I would have liked to have seen Cash sort of, really, struggle a bit longer. I know that's awful thing to say.
No, I know what you mean. I think it's where it looked like it was going that way, but then it didn't, and then it was like, oh, he's fine again. He's had a sleep. He's got his campaign okayed by his sister, and that's it. I was like, oh, okay.
Some people, I suppose, and now I'm talking myself the other way now, because some people deal with it by doing,
Yeah.
Well, it feels rushed. It takes at least a couple. I mean, they've had them flyers done at a printer. As luck would have it, Tane's insured. Great, let's do a class now. Like, just like whoa. Let's just, take a bit of time, and then those posters aren't going to be printed immediately. I mean, who is this printer in Yabby Creek? They can do anything at the drop of a hat. She's designed them herself.
I know. They blew Rue up, pun intended, didn't they? So that Alf could hold a photo of her in a coma up. Yeah. It must be the same place. It must be same day prints, Yeah.
Yeah, very fast. So yeah, someone hit the brakes somewhere, please. Maybe there's a reason. We haven't seen everything, have we? We've not seen next week. Maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
But hopefully, whatever the reason is, Flick, Tane, and the whole Flaming Gang can just get on with their lives now. You know what I mean?
You hear that, sorry?
Hey, that was a bit different, wasn't it?
It was. Last week on Your Say on the Bay, at the end of last week's main pod, I did a shout out, didn't I? And I challenged somebody to come forward with a jingle for us to introduce Your Say on the Bay. And we actually got someone that came forward. Yeah.
I was going to say, thinking, that would never happen.
No, I'm still honestly shocked that anybody listens to us at all. Never mind, actually listens and hears what we say and responds to us. It's just insane. I find that I still can't believe it. Starstruck, etc. Yeah, it's amazing. So we did get a response to my shout out for a jingle, and it's from the lovely Gav from the Corrie podcast. So Talk of the Street, they're a Coronation Street podcast, and it's hosted by Gav and Helen, and they are based in the USA. but they do watch Corrie at the regular pace, you know, and they do a weekly catch up, very much like ours, but it's for Coronation Street, weekly catch up podcast. So yeah, Gav sent us in that jingle. So I'm super impressed. Thank you, Gav.
Yes, thank you very
I
much.
really didn't expect anybody to send something in. So that's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I don't know what else to ask for now.
Well, your talents are needed because Lyric need a right good producer.
They do.
And they're a bandmate down now, so like we need you over in the Bay. Can you come and do take a sabbatical from the cobbles and come and help Lyric with your musical talent? I was trying to think of a word.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, Gav. And if anybody else wants to throw us a jingle, I don't know what else to ask for really. Now I feel like I've got the power that I can just throw stuff out there like demands and people will answer them. So I'll have to have a think about what we need.
Wine.
Wine, obviously wine. Yeah, if you can send us some wine, anybody, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Or a subscription for wine. That must be a thing.
Probably. You get a subscription for everything nowadays, can't you? Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. So that was our introduction to this week's Your Say on the Bay. Yeah, are you ready? Are you ready for another round?
Yeah, what have you got for me?
Oh, well, that's a good question. It's a good question. So for anyone who doesn't know what we're doing right now, so this is Your Say on the Bay. It's a little look at what you guys, the viewers of Home and Away, have thought about the episodes that have aired on 5 Star, Channel 5, or My 5, however you watch your homers this week. So what we do is we do a little trawl. We're on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, etc. And we do a little trawl through your comments on the socials and see what you've been saying about Home and Away this week. And then I just read them out to Si, because that's Your Say on the Bay in a nutshell, isn't it?
It is.
It is. So now I'm going to let the viewers, listeners, etc. in on a little secret, because it's going to be really obvious in a minute. So I've only looked at the comments up until Wednesday, because I'm on holiday right now as I'm talking. So I'm not doing it on the Friday evening as I would do normally. This was Wednesday. So the comments are not as fruitful, I guess, because people haven't seen all the episodes yet that are going out this week, but I've picked a few comments anyway. So
go with what we've got. Yeah.
Go with what we've got, but it might not make sense because people have probably seen the storylines unfold since these comments were made.
I was saying, right.
It's just a snapshot in time as of Wednesday. That's all. And the reason I'm saying this is because it'll be obvious in a minute when we talk about Marley's family comment. So, first of all, I've only got one comment on this. So, the Channel 5 Home and Away page, they tweeted, and they also put on Facebook on the Home and Away UK site as well. They put out the video of Theo practicing his interview skills to the chair in his living room. Do you remember this scene?
Yeah.
And they actually did like and they do like a green screen thing, and they gave the chair a face and like these little eyeballs looking around the room. So when Theo's talking to the chair's actually got a face and it's responding. It was quite funny. So lots of people were sort of retweeting this or liking this on Facebook and like saying it was really funny, and it made me laugh as well. But there was a comment. So obviously lots of people saying this is really funny, LOL, etc. But there was a comment from Lorraine, who was feeling quite bad for Theo. So Lorraine said, "Poor Theo, he's really letting his blip get to him, and that social media post didn't help. That's the problem with some social media posts. People can be nasty without revealing their identity, and the posts can be really upsetting." So while we're all laughing at Theo and thinking that meme is really funny or that clip is really funny, there is that side to it, where it's funny, but don't be the bully. And the
anonymity makes people behave worse, doesn't it? I think we've all experienced that one way or another at some point. Lorraine bringing us all down to earth there. Absolutely.
I think Lorraine was talking about the meme more than the chair video, but it's a good reminder that what we might find funny, someone else might take to heart, etc. So you got to be mindful of what you're putting out on the internet, haven't you?
Yeah.
So what about Marley's mum? So as you can imagine, there's lots of people talking about Marley and his mum and the reaction to, you know, that scene where she finds out that Rose is a cop and her son's in love with a cop, etc. Now, I will caveat this video was shared on Facebook before these scenes where the explanation about the brother were talked through. So some of these comments are quite mean against Marley's mum. And I don't know whether they'd still be as mean once they'd heard the explanation as to why they don't like cops, etc. So this is, like I say, a snapshot in time, and these people might not stand by their comments after seeing the next episode. So I'll just read them out. So we've got Linda, who says he's old enough to make his own mind up. And then we've got Elizabeth saying she's horrible. What difference does it make that Rose is a policewoman? Obviously, this is before we knew what the difference was.
Yeah.
Samantha was saying, Jesus Christ, imagine that as a mother-in-law. And that's mean, isn't it? Assuming they get that serious as well. She's obviously seeing Wedding Bells is Samantha. Yeah.
I think the fact that she got out of the car and was like Miss Dragon on a mission probably incited that reaction, would you say?
Yeah, I think all of these comments are I think that's what they've, you know, first impressions are that she's mean and horrible. And you can't really, I mean, I was a bit scared of her that first episode. I was kind of like, oh, I can see why Marley hasn't told her anything. I can see why he keeps things secret, because wow, she's a battle axe. You know, I was thinking that, and it wasn't until the next episode with the explanation and when she started to soften, I was like, oh, okay, she's not that bad. You know, I want to see more of this now. Whereas before I was like, what on earth's going on? So I think we can forgive people for these comments. I think this is the first impression essentially of that character, which I think is not wrong in that first impression either.
Yeah.
So Debbie says, at least she's got a job. I don't know whether Debbie's taking a pot at some of the cast members who don't seem to, characters rather than cast members, characters who don't seem to have a job.
Or Debbie was commenting on the bus to the job centre that morning, maybe.
maybe. Bit of green-eyed pasta going on.
Yeah, feeling a bit low.
Craig just comes out with what he says. He says she is horrible. And that got quite a lot of likes. And then Doe says he's a grown man, he can be with who he wants to be, it's his life. If he's happy with her, then she should be happy for him. She treats him like he's 12. Lara just says she's horrible. And then lots of people saying I don't like her. So Lara said she's horrible, and Sue said to Lara, I think there's a reason why she's got such beef with police, but at the moment I'm not liking her. And Lara went back to Sue and said, I get it, but there's no excuse for her behaviour towards Rose. And Marley is a good bloke, but she acts like he's the devil. That's the interesting thing, isn't it? So she's saying to him, like, you're really secretive. You're keeping secrets from me. Where's my Marley? You know, that you aren't my Marley. Your dad would be really, really disappointed in you and stuff. And she is acting like he's done something. You know, to get that reaction at a lunch, you know, a picnic with my mum, I'd have to probably poop in the Tupperware. You know what I mean? I'd have to do something really bad. She just wouldn't bat an eyelid if I'd lied to her. She'd just be like, oh yeah, whatever. So, you know, obviously they've got a very close-knit relationship where she never expects her kid to lie to her for, you know, even a white lie for her own benefit. So maybe to us it seems a bit extreme, but for them it's perfectly normal.
And I suppose, does it come back to that conversation about the difference in culture and,
yes,
you know, the expectations of a son would a little bit different, or an adult son, should I say, are a little bit different in their culture to perhaps British sort of culture. You know, I think it's probably a little bit of that as well, isn't it, in the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the difference, isn't it?
I'd say so.
It's not all bad. There are some good, some positive comments as well. So on Twitter, Chad said, "Great scenes with Rose meeting Marley's mum, Vicky. Excellent writing and lovely performances from everybody involved."
I agree. I really enjoyed those scenes.
Yeah, it was good. And then Jamie said, "I'm glad we finally got to see some scenes with Marley's family and his backstory."
Yeah, preach.
And then Victoria on Twitter has said, "I just know we're going to be meeting Marley's wayward brother somewhere down the line." And then she's put a little fingers crossed emoji. So I think Victoria does want to see Marley's brother, which is what we said on the main podcast. You know, we're hoping that those scenes aren't off screen, because obviously the last time we saw Vicky and Rose, she's invited us to come and meet the rest of the family. You know, bring Marley if you want, but you don't have to. But come and meet the rest of the family. I'm hoping we get to see that. Are you, like, not just off screen?
Me too. Yeah, and the you know, the brother is really interesting because it's obviously they've all had repercussions as a result. You know, and that was quite an explicit comment. You know, like, he's always getting stopped. We've all experienced it.
Yeah,
you know,
we've been with him.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So I think we need to meet him, to be honest.
Yeah, and Victoria's looking forward to that as well. So we're not the only ones that want to see that. Okay, what about Kirby and Theo then? So I think you tweeted something the other day about another day, another screaming match between Theo and Kirby.
Oh God, yes, sorry.
And you were asking on Twitter, you know, is he right? You know, does she do all this to get the attention? Because sometimes it's difficult to tell.
Yeah.
You know, what the motivation is or what the fight's about. You know, we struggle to keep up, don't we? So Mr. David on Twitter said, "Kirby is the only one who cares. Remy is too busy mooning over Brie. Theo is a flake, and Eden, all she cares about is cash. Kirby was the only one who stepped up with the PR when Justin became obsessed with Andrew, and she did the bulk of the interviews too." He's got a point.
Yeah, she did. You can't argue with that because she's carried them. She really has.
Thankless.
Yeah, and you can't blame her, like I say, for having her head turned. You know, someone who's gonna, you know, is gonna look after her for a change. You know, the rest of them are just all. I mean, they literally lately, the band have struggled to get together in a room. Like, Eden is obviously rightly so having to support. Well, she's been great and she's been supporting Felicity, but she's got Cash going through it as well. Remy's been in all sorts of issues with Brie and that blooming violinist. Like, she's got a lead singer come ex-boyfriend who's not talking to her. Like, no wonder the girl wants out.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't disagree with it at all, can you? Really? No. And someone else who's not disagreeing is Sharon. So Sharon replied to David and said, "I totally agree with the statement. He's moody because he didn't know about her surfing. As you say, the others are too engrossed in satisfying their partners. All of this happened because of Remy trying to help Brie. And now Eden's took off with Cash. It's a wonder anything gets done."
Well, yeah.
They've got a point.
I must say, Justin was nice with her. They've got a point. But Justin was the only one, and I think she needed to hear it, didn't she? You know that scene where she was going for a surf and he was coming out of the surf, and he says to her, "You know, it is an opportunity, and I don't blame you. I'd be sad to see you go, but I don't blame you." I think she needed to hear that, didn't she? Because she wasn't getting that support back from her so-called bandmates.
Yes, absolutely. And I think Justin can see it from the point of view of he's always wanted to be a musician, hasn't he? He's always wanted to be that. You know, he's living through Theo at the moment. You know, pushing him to kind of join the band and do the stuff that he didn't get to do. And I think Justin's probably thought about somebody offering him a recording contract with a 3-album deal and international tour. You know, being a support act for a famous artist. He's probably dreamt of this, so he can't really say to Kirby, "No, give it all up," because he knows that's the dream that she's chasing. So
and what day is it? David who said that one?
Yes.
What, you know, what he's saying is right. The others have partners and they're busy with that, like they're going to
Yeah.
hold her back, aren't
Yes.
they? Is basically what you're
Yeah.
saying. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sarah 30th floor on Twitter would be happy to see the back of Kirby if she did decide to go, because you tweeted,
Oh.
"Is Kirby gonna 0-1-2-1 do one?"
Yeah.
And Sarah said yes, and then there's like a hands up emoji, like, yeah, go for it, amen. And then Sarah also said, although I wouldn't be mad if she took Theo with her too. So, that really would break the band up, wouldn't it? If the another lead singer leaves Lyric. Good Lord, this band is cursed.
It's gonna be. It'll be like Claire and H.
Yes, spin off. Oh God, Lyric 2.0. We're not ready for that. We're not ready. The world is not ready. Taken 14 years to get this first album done. So good Lord. What about Mr. Stewart then? So, it's all come to light that he's got this hearing problem. He's known about it for a while. He's just been ignoring it, burying his head in the sand. It's not come out overnight as it looks like it has to us. He's explained it, hasn't he, to Marilyn, that he's known about it for a while and he's just been ignoring it. And he's before this, he was quite antagonistic, moody, bardy, didn't want to hear anyone talking about his hearing. I'm fit as a trout, etc., etc. So when he was kicking off and being mean to Marilyn, when Marilyn was trying to be concerned and show concern for her friend, I think again you asked on Twitter, is Alf being fair in how he's treating people? And David, Mr. David, bless you, you're our star of Your Say on the Bay this week. David said, Marilyn is a saint. Alf had a selfish daughter and a wife who cannot bear the sight of him, it seems. Be grateful she cares, you flaming galah. I think he's right, though, isn't he? I mean, this is the thing. Marilyn's probably the first person to mention it to him and notice and care, and she's trying to do it, like, carefully in her own Marilyn way. And say, I'm worried about you, darling. You're driving to the city and your safety and your hearing and blah, blah, blah. She's doing it from a place of love. And he is being a bit of a galah. And he's like David says, so his daughter's not going to notice. She's, in a hospital. And his wife doesn't seem to even want to come to the Bay and see him and spend time with him. She's either in Merimbula or she's at Rue's bedside, but she never comes to the Bay anymore. So David actually was talking about this on Twitter. I think a few people got involved with this conversation as well. And he made a good point that I thought was interesting to talk about on here. So David does say, I understand that spouses don't always want to live in each other's pockets, but Martha being gone so much is a huge waste and makes the retcon of her being alive after being presumed dead an even bigger joke. And I think David's got a good point. The fact that, we laugh about Martha never being around, and the fact that she's sat by Rue's bedside in the city quite nearby, not up the coast in Merimbula, which is hours away. And she's not coming to the Bay. We know the reason why. We know it's because the actress that plays her is a temporary actress. She's not a permanent character, etc., etc. But they could make her a permanent character if they wanted to. And it does kind of annoy me that we had that big retcon where Martha came back from the dead. Alf was a bigamist going off with Elsa. He knew that she wasn't dead, etc., etc. Like, that was such a big storyline, and now for her to just never be, she's like the Maris, the Frasier thing. She's like the Maris of the Bay, where we just hear about her but we never see her. It's annoying.
It is annoying. I was happy to go with it when it all first kicked off. We weren't doing the podcast when this happened, so this is an interesting topic. You bring her up a lot because it bugs you that she's never, I mean, now she's only, I know we know the city is X kilometers away and it's not, you can't just nip there. It's a good drive, isn't it? But she's only down the road and we're expected to believe she's staying there with Rue by her bedside. But in reality, she would probably come to the Bay with Alf for the weekend or whatever, or and nip by and say hello to everyone because she made friends as well when she was around. So it's a little unbelievable. The whole thing retconned. I think the longer this goes on, the more you realise it was just for a short-term sort of shock value. And actually, there was no sort of long-term plan, or it does. That might be unfair, but it feels like it, because now we're in this sticky situation. Raymar's part-time. You know, he's spending less and less time on there anyway. It's a great excuse for him to keep dipping out, and I suppose that is what it's all about, isn't it? That Alf has an excuse to be away all the time, but it's criminal to the characters and the story. The whole premise of the show was him selling his house after the death of his wife, and you could get that granular about it if you wanted to, as long-term fans. But yeah, it is a little upsetting that she can't even sort of stop by for an episode or two, and just make it feel a little bit more realistic and worthwhile. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, like you say, that I know the city's not, 10 minutes down the road, but it's much nearer than Marimbula is. And Alf manages to drive back and forward in a day, to the hospital in the morning, and then comes back to the bay at night and leaves Martha where? In a hotel in the city? Yeah. Like, I don't understand
it's so silly when his house is here. And I think, if she has to be a silent character, where we don't see her, she could still be at the house.
Yes.
I know we'd still sit here and slag it off every week, but she could be at the house still. Why is she in the city?
Yeah.
Alf could have nipped in for some carrot cake for them both, and so, me and Martha are staying, because we're going back to the hospital in a couple of days, but I've come to get some carrot cake for us. She's at home doing the washing, or whatever.
Didn't she get migraines as well? Didn't they used to use like a migraine as an example as to why she wasn't on screen? She could just have a migraine up in the spare room, couldn't she?
Yeah, but then her other personality might come out.
That's true.
It's always a risk.
Yeah.
It does seem a bit. I know, because I understand what he's saying. Do you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then just to end the week. So obviously the original question, we've kind of gone on a tangent, but it was useful. No, it was good to hear. Like, I think it's important to air it. If David's saying it, I'm sure there's other people thinking it as well. So the original sort of topic was this, Marilyn getting her head bitten off basically by Alf and his cantankerous grumpy old man act. And Bobby Alf on Twitter said Marilyn is looking out for Alf. Would hurt him to go and get his hearing tested, and if he needs a hearing aid, well, it's better than struggling to hear what's going on.
Yeah,
absolutely. It wouldn't hurt him. Hurt him, would it? So I think this is where we're going, because obviously these comments are from before we see the development of the storyline where he goes to Bree and he gets the tests, and we're just waiting for them. So I guess we'll find out next week, and maybe it'll be on Your Say on the Bay next week whether he's decided he's going to get hearing aids or what he's going to get done. I don't know.
Thank you for listening. We will be back with more episode discussion from Summer Bay soon. Until then, join the discussion online at Coastal News Pod.